How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the Timeless Movie Podcast, episode number 43. My name is Victor Vasquez. Thank you so much for coming back and listening to another episode where we're going to be covering a new movie that we just saw in theaters and really kind of giving our thoughts in regards to pros and cons, favorite performance, favorite moment, and then at the end deciding, is this movie timeless after one viewing? For this week's episode, we're going to be covering The Flash. This is the newest DC movie that has come out. It's one of the final ones before we actually jump into James Gunn's new DC universe. So it should be super exciting. But it actually still plays a big part, according to James Gunn, in regards to really resetting the entire universe that is DC. So let's go ahead and jump in to some of my initial kind of questions that I had before watching The Flash. And then we'll kind of jump into a lot of the overall detail about the movie, get into some spoilers, and then really give my final thoughts. Okay, so a couple of questions that I had before I ended up watching The Flash. If anybody had seen trailers, you had seen that Michael Keaton was returning as Batman. That's right, his original take on Batman from the original Batman film 1989 and Batman Returns. He was coming back and playing a part in this Flash film due to all the multiversal madness that was going to happen. You also got to see Supergirl, played by Sasha Calle. You basically kind of got to see that there was not going to be a Superman in this world, but rather a Supergirl that was going to help out as well. And then you have Ezra Miller as the Flash. And so one of my first thoughts was, how was this movie really going to end, which would then kind of set up the new DC universe? Was it intended to basically reset the entire kind of landscape of DC in order to kind of give fans a taste as to, hey, we're starting from scratch. This is an entirely new world, and the Flash is going to do that because of his ability to basically run so fast and faster than the speed of light that he can basically reverse time. And you know so what was that going to really entail in the movie? Were they actually going to be able to reset everything so that it kind of lets the audience know at the end, like, hey, everything that we saw before with like Ben Affleck and Henry Cavill, that's all in a different universe. We're now living in a new universe because of what Barry Allen did in this film. So that was really my first initial thought, because you're seeing all these different characters from different timelines, whether it's an older Batman and Michael Keaton, whether it's Supergirl and if she's going to start coming out in different films. How is that going to really play its part? And is it because of the fact that, you know, we're now basically setting a new track and is setting a new course for this DC universe and really for all the different types of films that are going to come out after this? It's all going to be under the leadership of James Gunn. Again, he is the co-CEO of the DCU now. And so really, I'm just hoping that this film kind of ends with something that just kind of gives us a good indication that this is, everything that we've seen up to this point has been the old DCU. And now everything after this film, because of what happens and the repercussions of, Barry Allen going into the past, this is what now is going to set course for the future. So hopefully they answer that, because that is really one of the big questions of how they're going to be able to kind of navigate and just have the audience really forget about what Zack Snyder and all the other kind of DC folks have done, and kind of, again, show off new characters overall. Another question that I had was, what are some of the cameos that we might see apart from Michael Keaton returning as Batman, and then we also see Supergirl, but were there going to be other cameos? And again, I know that cameos aren't going to be like really they're not story defining. They don't really make a movie any better or any worse. That sometimes there might not be needed. But I always enjoy seeing like a little surprise cameo. So who would be that cameo, right? In Shazam, we got to see Wonder Woman come out at the end. Would Wonder Woman make an appearance here? What about Aquaman? Again, I'm still shooting out hope that maybe this is the final send-off for Henry Cavill. He never got a real send-off. He appeared at the end of Black Adam, so spoiler warning if you never got a chance to see that. So just kind of curious what other characters of the Justice League might appear, or what other characters in other universes of DC films will appear here, right? We have different various Batmans that have come out. And so just kind of curious what other kind of surprises would make sense, considering that they are kind of discussing a little bit about the multiverse. They've explained it in the trailers. So very curious how that would all play out in this film. All right, guys, those were really my two thoughts. Again, how is this film going to end? And was it going to give us a clear indication as to what's to come? And then again, what kind of appearances and cameos were we'd see because of the multiverse shenanigans that are really taking place in The Flash? Now that I've actually seen the movie, I want to give my overall thoughts and my pros and cons as to what I thought about The Flash. So let's go ahead and dive in. Overall thoughts, I thought the movie was really good. I actually had a fun time watching it with my brother and one of my work friends. Going in, you're kind of again hesitant because The Flash is part of this like old establishment of characters that probably aren't going to exist anymore. We're getting a lot of recasting, a lot of new characters that are basically going to be developed. We already hear that there's going to be a recasting of Superman, of Batman, and all this stuff. And so it kind of leaves you in a feeling of like, well, what should we expect for this movie? And it was a fun time. Again, they deal with a lot of the different types of repercussions of multiverse. The Flash, again, being so fast and so quick that he's able to reverse time. And again, how that just comes into play in regards to what his goal is and his mission is in the film. It's just explained really well. So I had a great time. The visuals of him kind of running is never not going to be silly. Again, ever since he started running like in Justice League and the first times he came out, again, it just looks so funny how Ezra Miller would run as Barry Allen. They kind of changed it up a little bit here, but it's still pretty funny to kind of see him. And the movie was overall was a really good kind of comedy, I guess, if you would call it that. I know that it's in that superhero genre film, but it had really good jokes here and there. So I had a really great time watching this one, and obviously was super excited to see one of my favorite characters in any kind of genre franchise in the Batman. I loved Michael Keaton in the original Batman film, so I was super excited to see him on screen, and he did not disappoint. Jumping in, again, I wanted to cover some of my pros before I get to some of my cons. First pro was I really enjoyed the theme of this entire movie. Again, just to kind of give you kind of little tidbits, but we will be going into spoilers. So if you have not seen The Flash, definitely recommend you, again, like this video and come back after you have seen it. That way you can kind of discuss in the comments whether you agree or disagree with my thoughts. Okay, again, like I was mentioning, theme was a really big thing for me in this film. Really, the entire thing is about different problems that occur in our lives and how they could have various different solutions. And sometimes maybe no solution is the best solution in this case. And so that's kind of what Barry Allen in the movie played by Ezra Miller struggles with. Again, he lost his mother. His father was accused of murdering his mother. And so his father is in jail. And so Barry, as a forensic scientist, is just trying to kind of prove that his father is innocent. He tries to appeal every certain number of years to get him out of prison. And so he's kind of dealing with that fact of he doesn't have his mom and how that tragedy has really shaped him. And then he gets so emotional that he ends up, again, running so fast that he ends up going back in time. And he realizes that he can run so fast that he can go back to the point of when his mom was killed. And his thought is, if I can go as fast as I can basically save my mom and not have to deal with this tragedy. And that's basically the theme again of this whole entire movie is, well, what is the right decision? If you have the power to go back in time and change things and change outcomes of your life, is it the right idea, right? Is it a foolproof solution? Or is it just like a temporary short-term thing that will maybe cause some happiness for the time being, but then cause disruptions everywhere else in different timelines and different universes? And that's exactly what ends up happening. But again, just that whole theme of Barry Allen going through and trying to determine, like, just being set on, I have to save my mom. I want her in my life. I don't want her to be gone. I don't want to have to live with this tragedy. And then realizing that, again, the tragedy that he's dealing with is really what made him become the Flash, right? Makes him become a great hero that saves other people so that they don't have to go through that same tragedy. And again, he comes really full circle and realizing that he has to let that problem go. It sounds ridiculous, I know, because a lot of us have jobs and a lot of us have different problems that we deal with in life. And obviously, the answer sometimes isn't just leave it alone. But in this case, for Barry Allen, again, the theme was, there's various different problems. And again, there's so many different solutions that we can come at it. But sometimes the simplest one is to just let it go. Because as soon as we let it go, we're able to not live in the past anymore, but rather we can live in the present. We can live in the moment. And so that's what the lesson that Barry Allen learns in this film. And I really enjoyed how they kind of went through that as well. Another pro for me was just how the story kind of played out. I thought it was very smooth and kind of made sense all the way through. Again, it kind of just starts off with Barry being able to go back in time, and then you see him obviously interact with his former self, his younger self in this reality, before he actually got his powers. And then you see him interact with other characters like Michael Keaton's Batman, and then them having to kind of figure out and develop a plan to stop General Zod. Because again, in this universe this pocket universe that Barry has created now, he's basically merging all these different timelines where General Zod comes here, but in this new universe that Barry Allen created, there is no Superman, there's no metahumans, so he can't get the help of the Justice League, and so that's where he kind of has to help find where there is a metahuman or where Clark Kent could be. And so again, it just kind of all flows together until you hit that point of realization where, again, you see Barry Allen taking it through his mind, saying like, hey, maybe I can't solve this by just running and running away from this and running back in time to save my mom. Maybe there has to be another way to really kind of ease this pain. But again, the whole story just kind of made sense. It flowed very well for me. So I really enjoyed that. Last but not least, my favorite part of this movie and my biggest pro is Batman. I mentioned a little bit before, he is my favorite character in a lot of the different either Marvel, DC, whatever type of genre or franchise we're talking about. Batman is typically number one on my list. And Michael Keaton did not disappoint. Every time he came on screen, I was super excited when he delivered his line, "I am Batman." Again, I'd seen it in the trailer. I already knew what he was going to say, and I still got goosebumps. So that'll tell you how much I love this character. But every time he was on screen, again, he was so magnetic. You know, his ability to just kind of have your eyes locked in on him the entire time. And even when he was Batman, again, it just brought that same energy as in the classic 1989 and Batman Returns film. It was just so cool to watch him back in action. And just a lot of great stuff that he was able to pull off. And I thought he got a pretty good send-off as well. So definitely a big pro for me. And if you're a big Batman fan, I would even recommend just watching it just for that piece alone as well. Okay, those were my pros. Now I'm going to move on over to some of my cons. Again, I don't have that many, just two to kind of pinpoint. One of them is the CGI and the visuals in certain scenes, specifically when the Flash is kind of running, and trying to go back in time. They have these visuals where you're seeing like multiples of different types of iterations of the universe that Barry Allen is living. It all looked kind of computer generated, which again, I know it's CGI. I completely get that. But in this kind of, in these different types of CGIs that they kind of created, it looked very computerized, where you knew it wasn't real. It was fake. And I kind of got that was the intent of what they were maybe going through. Like, again, he's just running so fast in time that nothing's going to look super clear. Everything's going to look like a specific type of blur or not as real as it typically should look. But it just kind of looked very off. It just kind of looked kind of funky. So again, it's just a small nitpick. It didn't take me out of the movie. It just kind of caught me off guard. I was like, whoa, is it supposed to look like this? Like it's not as realistic? Is it supposed to look like a computer, like almost like a PS4, Xbox One type of a visual? I just wasn't sure. So it kind of caught me off guard on that respect of it as well. My last con of the movie for The Flash was some of the jokes were like really good. Some of them were a miss for me. So again, it's just a nitpick. And I know that, again, comedy is very subjective to different people. But for me, there was certain scenes where I don't think they needed to be that silly or that funny. It could have just kind of kept it very serious. But again, I know that the Barry Allen character is pretty much that kind of comedic relief that you typically see in a lot of these different types of DC films. You always have that one character that can hopefully provide that comedy when things are getting too serious. I just felt that some of the jokes may have been sprinkled in too much around some of the serious parts, or it kind of went a little bit overboard. Just to kind of call out a specific scene, there's a point where Barry Allen and his younger self just got powers to be able to run fast. And he ends up kind of trying to save, so I'll try to explain this to make it make sense. Younger Barry Allen goes and runs to try to save our own older version of Barry Allen, and before he gets shot. and he ends up moving him from one place to another. But apparently, there's a rule that says that you can never move a person from one place to another at that speed, because if not, then they'd be in trouble. And we end up realizing that trouble is basically, Barry Allen vomiting all over the place. Now, I thought it was funny at the first place, but then they showed 2 separate scenes where he just kept vomiting and vomiting. And I was like, it was funny the first time. You just needed to show it once. And then he kind of showed it again, and you're just kind of showing a lot of vomit. And so it kind of felt very unrealistic, Again, I know that it's a movie and I know it's a superhero genre, but, it's just things like that. Like where sometimes it felt like it was a really good joke that kind of landed really well with the audience. And then there was other ones that are kind of a little bit overboard where maybe we didn't need it to that extent. So again, small nitpicks on my side. It's nothing that really took me away and it took me out of the movie. It was just little small things, whether it was, again, jokes that didn't land for me, or specific CGI or visuals that just kind of, left me kind of like, oh, well, was it supposed to look like that or was it not? Apart from that, though, I thought the movie was awesome. Again, the one of my other favorite parts, and I forgot to mention this on the pros, is there was a great kind of twist at the end. Again, the twist wasn't that, nothing too crazy, but really, in all superhero films, we're starting to see kind of this expected trajectory where you have the hero kind of, again, hit rock bottom, then they kind of build back up for that climax, then they have that final battle with the villain in order to come out on top. And here, it seemed like it was going that way against General Zod, but then you end up noticing that they keep losing. You see Batman trying to basically sacrifice himself and crash into a ship, and then his ship explodes, and that's the end of Batman. And then you see Kara, who is in this universe, Supergirl. She ends up dying at the hands of General Zod. And so the Flash can't believe it, that he goes back in time to try to save them. And then the same things keep happening. They keep losing and losing and losing the battle until, again, he realizes, in this case, Barry Allen, realizes that he can't win this battle. He can't solve this problem. No matter what angle he comes at it with, there is no solution where he basically gets to save his mom. There is no universe where he gets to keep his mom and be happy. Because again, that's the tragedy that he has to live with. And I thought that was a really cool twist because again, you see most superhero movies end with like a climactic battle at the end, a huge payoff. And in this one, you never get to see that. But again, it still feels fulfilling because of the fact that, hey, you have to learn the hard way, right? You can't have everything. You can't have your cake and eat it too, right? In this case, for Barry Allen, he tries to run back in time, tries to do anything he can to save the universe where his mom lives, but he has to, again, let go of the problem. So I thought that was a really cool twist. And so I forgot to mention that on my earlier pros, but had to squeeze that in here as well. Once again, overall, I thought the movie was really fun. I had a great time watching it. Definitely recommend you guys go check it out in theaters. I went to go see it in Dolby Cinema, and the sound was super awesome, especially anytime that Batman came out. You could hear like the little elements and tones of Danny Elfman's Batman theme and score when he did it for Tim Burton. And it was so awesome to hear again. So I definitely would recommend, again, for any Batman fans or superhero fans, definitely a good time to go watch The Flash in theaters. Again, it's a great time. I don't think it's the best movie this year. Definitely not beating Guardians of the Galaxy or John Wick or Across the Spider-Verse. But definitely a great time if you want to watch, different style and just watch The Flash and Batman and Supergirl kick ass as well. Okay, everybody, now that I've gone through my overall thoughts, I thought this would be a good opportunity to jump into my favorite performance of the movie. To me, I actually really enjoyed Ezra Miller's Barry Allen. Now, I know, again, Ezra Miller going through a lot of negativity over the last couple of months because of the things he does. Again, I try to separate the art with the artist, I guess is what they say. So again, I thought he actually did really well. I enjoyed the conflict that he had where Barry Allen in the universe that we know him as, and how he interacts with his younger self, and how he realizes how annoying he is, how much he talks, how much he doesn't really pay attention and listen. And so it's always kind of interesting to see when a character gets to meet their younger self and shows that growth of like, man, why can't you just, pay attention and shut up? And, Barry Allen gets frustrated with his younger self. And so I thought that was a really good idea to kind of play that out in the film. And Ezra Miller, again, did a really great job. He kind of showed, again, that conflict. And definitely my favorite moments were when he had to say goodbye to his mom. That was heartbreaking. He knew that was at the point where, again, he had to give up the problem. He knew that he was not going to be able to solve the issue of saving his mom. He had to live in a universe where his mom was basically passed away. And that goodbye to his mom was really heartfelt. And what made it even worse is that, he couldn't even tell his mom that he was Barry Allen. Again, he was in a universe where his mom has Barry, but Barry's only about like 10 years old. So she doesn't recognize who he is as an adult. And so he just, again, comes in as a stranger and just says, how much he loved his mom. And he just tries to really relish in that moment for as much as he can before he really has to go back to his own universe. And so, again, I thought Ezra Miller did a great job in this film. His performance, again, as his younger self, as his normal self, and just kind of contemplating about how he tries to solve the problem until he realizes that, well, the only way I can solve this is just by letting it go. And again, it just kind of shows the character of Barry Allen kind of growing up in front of our eyes. So I thought it was a great performance. Different types of ranges that Ezra Miller had to perform, but really good stuff overall. Okay, I think I am ready to tell you about my favorite moment in this movie. I hope this really catches nobody off guard, but my favorite moment of the movie was Batman. Anytime Batman came out on screen, that was my favorite moment. Whether he was kicking ass and knocking out these guys in a I think it was like a Russian facility, trying to get who they thought they were trying to save, which is basically Clark Kent. Instead, ended up being Kara. But there was a scene where Michael Keaton's Batman basically comes down through a tunnel and he just starts knocking guys out using different types of gadgets, using his batarangs, and it just felt and looked so cool. I mean, his cowl and his suit, it looked like the classic 1989 and the 1992 versions of Michael Keaton's suit, but it looked kind of like upgraded in a way. It just looked so sleek. Oh man, it was just so beautiful to watch. I got goosebumps. And again, the music playing in the background, the score of Batman. Anytime he was flying his Batwing, that was a freaking amazing scene as well. Him being able to, there's a part where like they're trying to, get into the facility, and in his Batwing, he kind of lets both Barrys, the younger and the current version of Barry, know that they're both attached to their parachutes. And then one of the Barrys asks, like, "Where's your parachute?" And Batman, all he does is smile. And he basically just dives down and dive bombs into the facility, and he just like lets his cape go, and his cape is just basically helping him glide all the way down. It was so freaking cool, man. And again, anytime the Batman came out on screen, that was basically my favorite moment. Again, no matter what he was doing, whether he was flying a ship, he was knocking guys out, using his gadgets as Bruce Wayne. It was all a great time for me, and I enjoyed every second of Michael Keaton's Batman, and was super happy to see him back as Batman as well. All right, everybody, now that I've talked about my favorite moments of the film and my favorite performance, as well as my overall pros and cons, I think this would be a good opportunity to dive into the final question and the final segment of this podcast, which is The Flash timeless? For me, personally, at this moment, I do not believe this film is timeless. It has potential. It definitely does. I would rewatch it, most definitely, just for the Batman scenes. Again, the Batman really stole the show for me. Anytime he came out, anytime Michael Keaton was as Bruce Wayne or Batman, my eyes were locked onto the screen. So those would really be the moments that I would enjoy rewatching. And again, I feel like I probably will rewatch it. But I'm thinking about years down the road, years later, like would I just kind of tell myself like, yeah, I feel like watching The Flash today. Like if I'm thinking about something multiverse concept related, would I decide that this is the movie that I would watch rather than like Multiverse of Madness or Across the Spider-Verse? And currently it's not. No, again, I feel like the story is really well told. Again, I love the theme and the emotion that Barry Allen has to face when it comes to his mom and trying to save her. Again, I kind of left the theaters like, yeah, this is a really cool movie. It's probably one of the top DC movies. I don't think it's my favorite one of all the DC ones that have come out. But I thought it was really well done overall. I just feel like there was, nothing else that would want to make me get back into watching this movie other than Batman. And so I feel like if there's nothing else that really kind of motivates me to watch it, then pretty much not timeless for me as of this moment. Now, I can definitely change my tune if I watch it a couple more times and then realize, man, this is really good. Or like, man, I was so wrong about this. Like, this is definitely easy to watch. But again, for me, at the moment, I feel like, although again, the story is really well told and it kind of flows very nicely, again, some of the jokes just are hit and miss for me. Again, some of the CGI just kind of looks a little wonky. So just little things that, again, kind of add up into, it was a cool movie to watch one time, but I think I'm set after this viewing. All right, everybody. Those are my thoughts on The Flash, the newest DC movie that has come out over the last recent years. What are your thoughts, though? I want to hear from you. Have you seen The Flash? And if you have, let me know your thoughts. Do you think this is the best DC movie that you've seen in a while? Do you think this is the best multiverse movie that you've seen? What did you think about Batman? And more importantly, do you think this movie is timeless? If you do, let me know down below in the comments. That way we can interact and chat a little bit more about this movie. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for coming back and listening to another podcast talking about a new movie that we just saw in theaters. My name is Victor Vasquez. This has been episode number 43 of the Timeless Movie Podcast. And make sure to come back next week before we talk about a new movie that we catch in theaters and decide if it is timeless. All right, everybody. Thank you so much, and I'll talk to you later.